Welcome to Restoration Beyond the Couch. I'm Dr. Lee Long, and today's episode is incredibly special to me. I'm joined by my daughter, Ella, and we explore what it's like growing up as a child of a therapist. Together, we'll share conversations about the challenges, funny moments, and lessons that come with being a part of a family deeply rooted in mental health. Join us as we reflect on our experiences, offer insights into family dynamics, communication, and the balance between personal and professional life. Your path to mental wellness starts here. Hi, Ella.
Hi, Dad.
Welcome.
Is that weird to hear?
Yeah, it is.
In a podcast?
Yeah. So welcome, Ella, to Beyond the Couch. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So one of the things that we thought we would cover in this podcast is what it's like to grow up with or to have parent, family member, friend, any close person that is a mental health professional.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, why not bring in an expert?
That's me.
Yeah. So you've been around a mental health professional for most all of your life.
True.
And
all of my life. Not most of all of it.
Yeah. Well, you went away to school.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So tell us kind of the highlights of what it's been like for you growing up with a mental health professional in your home.
Yeah. Well, it was always the norm for me, so I didn't know any better.
Right.
But I didn't know what you did for, obviously you just went to work for most of 10 years, I think. And then I realized what you did. And then once I realized what you did, I knew you talked to people and you did something with their brain and you fixed them. And I thought you could read my brain every time you spoke to me. So I could never hide anything because I thought he was going to figure it out just by looking into my eyes.
So you kind of felt like I was a human x-ray machine.
Pretty much,
I
yeah.
love that. That's
so.
I love that, and I hate that for you at the same time because autonomy is, I think, very important when you're growing up and knowing that you get to be your own person.
Mm-hmm.
That you weren't like, I would have never wanted you to ever think that we would be in your head trying to make you be a certain way.
And I don't think that. I don't think you were trying to make me a certain way. I think you just, whatever way I decided to be, you were going to know.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is funny because that's
Pressure
relationship
to be,
though, right? Like
yeah.
whatever way you decide to be, we're going to know because we're close to each other. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just thought it was more scientific than that.
Like it was literally like I had an x-ray machine and I could see into your brain.
You could see my thoughts. You could see.
Whoa.
I thought you were like you know, people that can read body language super well to the point where like you know exactly what's going on, or like if someone lies and they like have a certain twitch or whatever, that like you would pick up on that no matter what.
Yeah. Well,
maybe you can.
That's
I don't
kind
know.
of partially true-ish. I mean, but I also think that people who do that, who read people for their profession, and I think that part of therapy is reading people, but really one of the myths that I hope we can dispel is that it's not about, like, I remember part of my career, I thought I was like a detective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I needed to understand, like, are you lying to me or are you telling the truth?
Mm-hmm.
It's like at some point you really sit back and you think, it's not about trying to determine whether you're lying to me or not. It's really trying to determine who you are. And what is it that you're bringing to this session? And what is it that you're trying to get out of this session? Because if you're lying to me, okay, like why? And what service does that pay you?
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense?
It's more about like the intention behind what you do, not what you're doing.
Right. And it's really more about discovering that and then discovering who you are as the person sitting across, mm-hmm. and discovering what is it that you're coming for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if I mean, I've actually treated people who didn't want to tell me like some really horrible things that had happened. I'm like, that's fine as long as we can talk about the periphery of those things. Like, I don't need to see all the way into the depths of your well of your life. But could it be that I'm just learning how things impacted you?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think so.
Cool.
I think one of the things we were talking about that is interesting is like when you were saying that raising me, mental health was always on the top of the priority list.
Yeah.
Above, not above parenting because you were parenting, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like above giving rules and like being a dictator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think
totally.
Maybe some parents lean more towards that way, and it's harder to see like the mental health aspect of the kid. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I do. I think that if you consider what we're trying to raise, like what are we trying to raise? We're not raising a child, we're raising an adult. Right? Like that was our goal, was always to raise up individuals who were going to go into the world and be contributing citizens, and that we're going to have a deep faith and a deep sense of understanding and knowledge and experience of God and of who they are. And so teaching you or providing ground for you to find who you are and what you want to do and who you want to become and who you were designed and developed to be. Like that was, to me, the utmost importance. Because I don't want you to be who I want you to be. I want you to be who you were designed to be. And I remember when you were born, looking at you, because, you know, you're our first, and like looking at you and thinking, man, I don't know you. And I would give anything for you. I would give my life, but I don't know you. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life getting to know you. And that was such I don't want to say a primal thought, but it was such an instinctual thought of the first time I met you. And thinking about that, like, it's like I still am enjoying getting to know you. I mean, I know you, but it's the enjoyment of getting to know you for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense what I mean by that?
Yeah. Like the relationship aspect of it, more so than the parent aspect of it.
The relationship aspect of it and the discovery aspect of it. The discovery is so much part of a relationship. I mean, I've been married for almost, well, it'll be 24 years. And it's like I still love discovering who my wife is. People think, oh, well, don't you know her by now? Well, yeah. But I also know that as we grow, as we age or mature, there's aspects of us that can change. And so it's like, great. I don't want us to be static for the rest of our lives. I want us to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. And as I grow and as she grows, it's like, how do we get to know that growth? Through discovery. Same thing with you and your siblings.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So early on in my career, I taught parenting classes, and we would go to various locations and we would teach this class. And the parenting class was very much founded upon connection and relationship. And I remember when you were 2, and we were teaching this class at a pretty large place, and we were pretty cool with you dressing yourself, and we wanted you to have we wanted you to have choices, and your choice that day was like some rain boots and an outfit that didn't match, which again we didn't care. Like it was fine. It's what you wanted. It was your choice. And again, I'm not saying that if parents care about that's a bad thing. That's just a place that we were willing to bend. Mm-hmm. And you were marching around in your little rain boots, and you were a very compliant child. For whatever reason that day, you were not having whatever it was. And you let out a really loud screech in the foyer of this building. And I mean, it was all hard surfaces, so it was loud and it echoed. And I just remember one of the participants who had a really loud, booming voice was like, "Okay, parenting guy, let's see what you've got." And it was such a pivotal moment for me as a dad, because I remember thinking, like, who is this for? Is this for them, like to show them what the parenting guy has? Or is this between me and you? And unfortunately, everybody's watching. But is this between me and you? And it was almost like I was in the Matrix and time stood still. But that thought of who is this for? And is this between me and you? Or is this between me and them? Mm. And thank God he helped me choose appropriately. And it was between me and you. And it was like, that was a decision that I feel like I got to make at a really pivotal time in being a dad. And it was like, it was almost like he allowed me to block everything else out. Mm-hmm. And you and I talked it through. And yes, you were 2. And yes, we talked with each other. No, I wasn't reasoning with a 2-year-old, but I needed to connect with you because we were very disconnected in that moment. And I think I knelt down. And I think I said, "You're frustrated." You're like, "Yes." And, and I was like, "You're frustrated and I don't know why." And you were able to, in a very frustrated tone, tell me why you were frustrated. And then we walked through that, and it was, I wanted, a donut or whatever it was. And it was like, well, you know what? We're not going to have donuts. We're actually going to go eat lunch. And you were frustrated, and I was able to say, and I get that you're frustrated, and yet the limit still stands. We hugged, we connected. And it was funny because after it was over, the guy with the big booming voice just kind of started slow clapping. Like, good job, parenting guy. I guess it does work. And it was kind of funny because part of me wondered later, like, I wonder if he thinks we staged that. Because if we had, that would have been
a really
brilliant.
Good show.
Right. It would have been brilliant. Because you really, like, you responded perfectly to,
really?
Yeah, to all the parenting techniques we were teaching. So.
One thing I wanted to ask, like, as I got older and, like, maybe we had more disagreements along the way, like, how do you feel like being a therapist, what kind of ways of dealing with conflict did you take from that and apply to conflicts that I had as your daughter?
I think that the conflicts, the subjects may have changed, but the pathway to deal with them didn't. From that conflict when you were 2 in the foyer of that building. It was always, when there's a conflict, the hope is that you're able to connect. And if there was conflict between us, it was always to find that place that there's connection between us. And to say, okay, we're connecting here, but maybe there's friction here. So let's take the place that we're connected and let's move that towards the friction. And if that means that I need to sit back and listen, even if I don't agree, I want to hear you. And I feel like you were always good at that too, of listening, even if you didn't agree. And I feel like there's always been that back and forth of connection. That's why when you say, mental health was so important, like, did you consider that more important than being a parent? And you're saying, yeah, but that is parenting. It really was. To me, what we were trying to preserve was connection. Mm-hmm. Like that if we could stay attached, and the psychological term would be attachment. I wanted to make sure we wanted to make sure that you and your siblings, like that we have a secure attachment, that we feel safe with one another, safe enough to say, I disagree. Because I think that's important. Disagreeing is important. I don't want little carbon copies running around. Like, I want you all to be who God designed you to be. Mm-hmm. And so I think in conflict, it's a matter of saying, okay, I know that I love you and I know that you love me. And so let's start from that premise, and then let's figure out, where do we disagree and why?
Yeah, I see. I think one of the things I've heard a lot from, like, a lot of people is like they feel like their parents aren't like emotionally available. Like I think that's a word that I hear often about their experience with the family. How do you feel like, do you think your experience as a counselor has made you more emotionally available, or do you think you as a person, like, how do you?
No, I definitely wholeheartedly think it's because of my profession.
Really?
Yes.
In what way?
Because I think I understand, because of all that I've learned academically, how important intentionality is. And had I chosen a different profession or been called to a different profession, I don't know that I would have paid attention to that. I mean, hopefully I would.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would say, and I often say, thank God that I was called into this profession, that this is the career that I chose for myself, however you want to see it. I often say I'm so grateful for that, because I don't know that I would have understood the impact of my behavior on those in my home. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've always been very thoughtful about things, and I think that came from you. I've always like been very analytical of how like what happens in situations. And I've noticed that a lot more recently as I'm an adult and like learning how I navigate different situations.
Yeah.
But Mom was telling me as a kid, when I would play Littlest Pet Shops, she would I'd ask her like, so if the Littlest Pet Shop were to like, I don't know, eat the whole jar of cookies, what would she get in trouble and why? And it was just a constant like kind of trying to use the toys to kind of figure out how the life worked, pretty much, what was allowed and what wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a subconscious thing that came from having a therapist dad, but
maybe so. At
know.
the same time, I think that's a really natural maturity.
Yeah.
Or it's a real natural developmental play. Is to ask questions, to be curious. I think it's more about your personhood and the freedom that you felt as a kid to be able to try things out. That's why kids lie. Like sometimes people will come to us and think, oh my gosh, my kid's a pathological liar. They spilled some milk and said a goat did it. And you're like, yeah, it's part of their developmental process.
Yeah.
Some approach it through play, like what you're talking about. And play therapy is a lot about that, where you learn from their play, from the child's play, what is it that they're processing. And so you processing and navigating those themes in play makes a whole lot of sense. And I thought it was always really sweet to watch you work those things out.
Yeah.
But it's funny too, though, because like I forget where Mom and I were, but we were having a discussion. We'll call it a discussion. And it was a discussion with a lot of friction. And I think we were both kind of joking about some of the friction, but I forget who was with us, but we were talking about something, and it was like, and I would like to tell you where I am coming from, because my personhood would like to say and it was like we were using some really technical terms, and whoever was with us was kind of giggling like, oh my gosh, y'all are such dorks. And like, do y'all always do it this way? And I'm like, no, we don't. We have good old fashioned discussions. But I think a lot of times people think as a therapist, you don't turn it off. Like, you're analyzing your family, you're analyzing your friends. And I think, gosh, I mean this with all the love and respect in the world to all those people close, but I don't want to spend that kind of brain power when I'm not working.
Yeah.
And so, no, we do turn it off.
Yeah.
And no, we don't sit around and have share your feelings moments in the Long household.
I think we do.
But we don't call
we
it
have
that.
discussions.
We have discussions.
Normal yeah.
Yeah.
Good discussions.
Right. But it's not like, okay, everyone, sit down. It's 5:00. It's time to share your emotions.
You're going to read all your body language and figure out everything you've done this past week.
The emotional x-ray is going to come in and take your picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I've like, it's easy to take for granted how lucky I am to have a therapist dad, because I'm used to it. And I hear people that obviously don't have a therapist dad, and it's like, I don't know, I become more and more grateful for it as I realize how lucky I am to have that. Because a lot of people don't. So I also love how this has turned into like a myth debunking discussion.
Yes.
I think I was surprised by, because I don't know, maybe I was like 15 or 16 when I came to you and said I wanted to like date, like, could I be in a relationship? Is that allowed? The littlest pet shop. And I think I was surprised when you said yes. You encouraged it. What was the intention behind that?
You're right. I did encourage it. I would encourage that for all of you. Because I think that I want you to learn how to navigate a broken heart. And I want you to learn how to navigate that under my roof. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that when your heart gets broken, or when you break somebody's heart, or when you get hurt, that you know how to, or at least you have a principled understanding of like, how do we walk through this? And, how do you make sure you continue to honor you? And how do you honor the person either whose heart you're going to break, or who broke your heart? And so, I think that my whole thing in parenting was always let's figure out together how we can say yes to this. Now, there are things that the only yes I can give you is if the situation's completely different. So to this situation, there's just not a yes in there. So I don't want it to come across like, yeah, we're permissive parents and you can do whatever you want. It's not been that. I mean, I don't think that was your experience.
Being super permissive?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I was also a kid. So
That's true. But I mean, even as a teenager, like our whole goal with you was your last, it's our goal with all of our kids, is their last year under our roof, that you're pretty much coming and going as you please. It's all about respecting the household, as opposed to you have a curfew and you have this that you have to, like, we're going to, have all these conflictual conversations with you. We wanted to have, and we still want to have, connected conversations. And that may sound a little silly, but what I mean by that is, what I mean by that is I want to be able to talk through things with you. So the best way to put the kibosh on talking through situations with somebody is to be unbending, inflexible, and unwilling to hear their side. And so, I mean, we've had situations, where we've allowed things that may stretch other people's limits. So we've had friends who have heard things that we've said yes to, and on the surface of it, they've given us a distinct amount of grief, a truckload of grief over it. And my response to them is always, hold on. Like, let me tell you, if you're willing to hear, let me tell you the specifics. And let me tell you the thought pattern behind why. And let me tell you all the principles that were learned as a result. And inevitably, and maybe it's because I'm a good salesman, but inevitably, they were like, oh, okay, I see where you were going with that. Oh, okay. Well, so they learned about safety. They learned experientially. The type of learning that you gain through experience, it's called procedural learning, as opposed to task-oriented learning. And task-oriented is more like out of the book. And yeah, it's important to read a book and learn things, but then you go and do that thing and you learn the procedure to do it. And that's what, like, I want you all to learn safety. I want you all to learn what it means to have your wits about you in the midst of something that's stressful. I want you to learn how to strategically think things through so that you're safe, and look, I want you to have fun. Part of this life is about enjoying, right? And so I want you to find things that you enjoy. And that's when laying some of these things out, it's like, yes, we're going to find a way to say yes if we can. And if we can't say yes to that, then let's find something else that we can say yes to that is good for you. Because if it's not illegal, immoral, unbiblical, or unethical, we want to say yes to it. But those are our 4 pillars. Illegal, immoral, unbiblical, and unethical. Those are our 4 pillars.
Those are good pillars.
Yeah, they're good pillars.
And I think like in those types of situations, like you said, it wasn't just a yes. It was like a yes, but it had boundaries to it.
Always.
And I think that's where, if people are giving you grief for being too lenient, like that's where it comes in. We're like, yeah, it was a yes, but there were these rules around it.
Yeah, I like to refer to them as guidelines.
And maybe I didn't like the guidelines, but
maybe, but
I learned from them.
Right, and when you all don't like the guidelines that we put out, it's like we both really want to understand why, because that's the X-ray that gives me insight into you, and not so that we can manipulate. It's so that we can know. It's a greater form in my mind, and in your mom's mind. It's a greater form of connection. It's a greater form of being with each other and understanding each other better.
You've always been very invested in all 3 of our lives, I think. I'm trying to think of like first when I started in dance, you were always very involved in that, and you were dance dad. And then Molly started horse riding. But
to be clear, I was dance dad from the audience. I never got up and
He was never on stage.
Never.
Unfortunately.
Fortunately for all the other people watching, no, I was not. But yes, I always.
But you were the dance dad of the dance moms group and all that.
Yeah, well, you were there.
Yeah.
It's like on the way over here, you said to me, "You're off today," and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I'm bringing you back to the office." I'm like, I don't care where we go. I just want to be together. And if you're dancing, like I want to hang out there because you're passionate about it. So therefore I'm passionate about it.
Yeah. And that was an interesting, and also when I decided to rush a sorority or go through recruitment,
recruitment was the best.
It was more fun for you than for me.
You know why?
Why?
It is so strategy laden.
Yeah.
Like it was like 3D chess. And like I had so much fun. Like, okay, what's the strategy today? Like,
what dress are we gonna wear?
Yeah. I mean, I knew you were gonna kill it. You were gonna look amazing no matter what you wore. But it was the whole idea of like getting to be strategic. I love strategy. Anyway.
Yeah, but in that situation, you were there for me for something that was gonna be beyond, like something that you weren't ultimately a part of, but you were still super invested in it and in my experience, which I appreciated.
Yeah,
having sorority dad, and now you have all your sorority shirts.
So. Oh yeah, I love it. I love my sorority shirts. But the whole point in that for me was because it's a point of connection with you. It's so funny when your mom and I met, we were just friends for a very long time. And I remember, she lived in Southeast Asia for a period of time. And I remember being just friends and people saying, "Why are you flying over there to visit her?" I'm like, because she's there. Like, that's her experience there. And I want to see and be a part of what she's experiencing. And yes, it worked to my advantage when she came home and married me not much long after that. But I wanted to be a part of what she was experiencing. And it's like, that's what I wanted with you and with your siblings, is like, I wanted to be a part of, like, you're going through sorority rush. Like, I want to know what's going on. Like, I want to be in that with you. I mean, not like I'm the dad who's like showing up and, spraying your hair and making sure, all that. I mean, I think that'd be creepy and kind of weird, but it's that whole thing of like, I want to experience this with you. Like, I love you. I love your brother and sister. I love your mother. And I want to be with y'all in that, you know? Yeah.
I think that translated well because I never felt like you were overbearing or like trying too hard to like be a part of things.
Good.
Because I can imagine maybe sometimes it feels that way with parents, like trying to be a part of things. So I guess you did it well.
Thank you. I think the difference, hopefully, I think maybe from a psychological perspective, I think, you know, I see, you know, people being called like the baseball dad or the football dad or the, you know, they're the dance mom or the, you know, the cheer mom and I think that a lot of times, and sometimes I could see how this would be difficult. Sometimes we try to live out our dreams through our children, through our kids. And I think that's where the overbearing comes in, is because my dream isn't your dream. And your dream has to be what you're pursuing. Otherwise, it's dreadfully inauthentic, and you won't be able to pull it off very well.
Yeah.
But if it's your dream, not mine, then I just get to enjoy your dream with you. And to me, that's how we stay separate. Right? It's like the attachment language is it's warm but separate. And the warmth is the closeness, but the separateness is obviously the separate. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I never wanted to play baseball, but your brother does. And so it's easy for me to say, you know, get after it. I never wanted to be a horseback rider, but your sister does. And so it's like, yeah, go tear it up.
You never wanted to be in a sorority?
Never wanted to be in a sorority. I never wanted to be in dance. I never wanted to be an artist. You know, like those were not my dreams. Yeah. But they're y'all's dreams. And I think that as much as we can stand back from now, and if you all said like, oh, I wanted to be, you know, a really successful psychologist, like that's my dream, or a really successful, if y'all said you wanted to be a really successful, you know, therapist or mental health professional, I don't want to get involved in that. I would love to see you do that if that's your dream, but it's not, my dream is that I want it to be. My dream isn't that I wanted to be that through you. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm honored to be here.
I'm
actually honored that you're here.
Oh, thanks.
Part of what we do, as you will know, and Beyond the Couch, is we want to leave our listeners with some tips, some practical advice. Do you have any practical advice for our listeners that you think might be intriguing?
Well, I'm in my third year of college now. And one of the things, I was also homeschooled in high school. And that was 2020 when COVID was happening. So it was a very lonely time. I wasn't doing a lot. I wasn't seeing a lot. And I kind of realized the importance of going out of my comfort zone. I'm a very introverted person. And so kind of pushing back against that sometimes when it's needed. And especially coming to college when you're faced with a lot of opportunities, a lot of different relationships, and just take hold of opportunities. Don't be scared of them. And going out of your comfort zone is a big thing because I dread social events where I don't know who I'm going to see. I don't know what I'm going to do. I hate it. But every single time I force myself to go do something, I always ends up being my favorite day every time. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because I think what you're proposing, which I think is fantastic, is that don't be defined by your fears. Don't be defined by discomfort. That when you experience discomfort, and I think knowing yourself well, you'll know, is this discomfort or is this debilitating? If it's debilitating, honor that and work through that a different way. But if it's discomfort, you can press through discomfort. And so I love that. You're encouraging people, press through the discomfort. If it's debilitating, work through that a different way.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
Thank you. What about you? Do you have any advice?
I think I would piggyback on what you said and just encourage our listeners, know yourself. Know yourself and what you bring to the table, right? That was my whole hope. Not my whole hope. That is part of my desire for you and for your siblings, for your mom, for me, for all of our friends and families, that we know who we are, that we understand like what we bring to the table, so to speak. That by knowing who we are, we'll understand, is that a discomfort or is that debilitating? And we can act accordingly. So
that's really good.
Thank you.
If you found value in our discussion and wish to uncover more about the fascinating world of mental wellness, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where Dr. Long will continue to delve into empowering therapies and strategies for mental wellness. Your journey to understanding and embracing mental health is just beginning, and we're excited to have you with us every step of the way. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and remember to celebrate restored freedom as you uncover it.